Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. Happy Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas to everyone. I hope you have a great day tomorrow. Joining me today, it's Michael McCubbin and Henry Hill. We're actually shooting this the week beforehand, so we're not feeling quite as Christmassy as you. But McCubs, how are you doing this morning?
Yeah, not too bad. Yeah, not much to report on really. Man United won last night.
Good
which
win.
is about a week ago now, so who knows, the form might have dropped off a cliff since then.
Ollie could be out of a job by now. Who knows?
Stranger things have happened.
Stranger things have happened indeed. Henry, you always get a bit baity if I don't ask you how you are. So how are you doing, man?
I'm great. I'm shooting this next to a Christmas tree. I'm feeling very festive. I was telling you before this. I had a weird dream last night that I'd edited 80% of a top 10, and done the VO and everything, and then I bumped into one of our colleagues in a I think it was Joe or Chris in a tunnel somewhere, and they told me that I had to change the title and change everything, and I woke up in a filthy mood. So I think Football Daily's really getting in my head right now, and it's very disturbing.
Absolutely. I think we all need a break. It's been manic in the build up to Christmas, but I hope you enjoy all our Christmas content, starting today with our Continental Club, which is going to basically round up the year. We're going to do a year in review. We're going to talk our biggest disappointments, what we enjoyed the most, our unsung heroes, and our team of the years. That's because at Jerry McKinley 90 said, what were your best and worst moments of 2020? And we're going to stick to football on this because that's what we know best. We're going to kick off, because it's Christmas, we're going to kick off on a lighter note with what we enjoyed the most. Henry, what did you enjoy the most this year in a footballing way?
Oh, there was a few things to choose from for me, but of course it has to be Atalanta, the absolute goal machines out of Serie A. Chris Hamill loves them, we love them on the channel, and this season they hit new heights. I mean, it's not like they haven't been performing at a high level before. They finished in the top four in 3 of the past 4 seasons, but yeah, they really turned it on, Gasparini's boys, this season, with Papu Gomez, who even has his own, I believe, trademarked dance, which shows what kind of a guy he really is. But yeah, so last season in Serie A they finished third with 78 points. That was 6 more than their previous best ever season, and they finished just 5 points behind the champions Juventus. In 2020, when the restart, they went on that amazing run where they were just scoring for fun and winning games for fun. They just sort of faltered at the end, but yeah, they scored 98 league goals. That's 17 more than the next best, Inter Milan, and only topped by Man City and Bayern in Europe's top 5 leagues. And let's just remember the disparity between the wage bills and everything there. I think Atalanta famously have a wage bill closer in line with Reading in the Championship. They play in a small stadium, which they're slowly revamping in Bergamo, and it's just, yeah, defending's not an option for them. It's all out attack. You don't just win by 1-0 under Gasperini. That was what was great, really. And in the Champions League as well, they were super exciting. They lost their opening 3 games, actually, conceding 11 goals. They had a tough group with Manchester City, but then they managed to draw at home to City, beat Dinamo Zagreb, and then win at Shakhtar Donetsk to get to the knockouts, where they went on and beat Valencia 8-4 on aggregate. Remember, this is when Valencia was sort of doing okay. And then they got through to they're in that quarterfinal against PSG, and were so close to pulling off that shock win. But of course, Choupo-Moting, the Dark Destroyer himself, came and scored that 93rd minute winner. He's fair play to him. And yeah, it was good for PSG to get to the final. But really, it was just super exciting from Atalanta. It would have been a fairy tale run if they managed to get to the semi-finals, and you never know. And who is it they've got in the next round of the Champions League this year? Is it, I think it's an English side. Oh my
goodness, I've drawn a blank.
Well, they're Real Madrid. They're up against Real Madrid.
Real Madrid, that's it, cool.
That could be a really fun fixture again. Obviously, this side of 2020 for them has been a bit mixed. They haven't quite done as well. They're 1 win and 5 in the league at the moment, 10 points off Milan. And there's rumours that Papu Gomez is going to leave now, and it's all sort of kicking off a little bit. However, they were so exciting across 2020 that I'll give them this little hiccup right now, because Serie A is looking quite strong across the board. For me, the rise of Serie A and the goal machines that they were, that was the most exciting thing in 2020.
I think it's a great shout. I mean, up until quite recently, they were phenomenal to watch. They're just going through a bit of a sticky patch, and they also had Ilicic out at the start of the season. Papu Gomez is now seemingly fallen out with Gasperini, as you say, so hopefully they don't start 2021 in a negative fashion, because after all they've built over the last 3 or 4 years, that'd be a real shame. McCubs, let's move on to you and what you enjoyed the most, because I think you want to talk about a certain youngster who maybe didn't have the best 2019.
Yeah, I think it's hard to talk about 2020 without mentioning Joao Felix, is it? I think out of all the kind of young players, I think he's had one of the biggest turnarounds in terms of like. I don't know. I think we were all maybe a little bit. We were all very sceptical, weren't we? 120 million or more, was it? 120 million, 125 million euros that Atletico paid for him back in the summer of 2019, and he had been amazing in the Europa League for Benfica, hadn't he? Already had like a bit of a. He already looked like a big game player, didn't he? And then came to Atleti. Not sure it seemed like the best move for him coming into like an Atleti team in transition, which was becoming ever more defensive and was more and more over reliant on one or two players. Basically had to kind of replace Griezmann in an instance, didn't he? And unsurprisingly didn't really do that well. He only scored like 4 goals and got an assist in those kind of opening months for Atleti. But then I don't know. I think Atleti as a whole, to be fair, I can't just give credit to Joao Felix, but Atleti as a whole in 2020, it was just great to see that kind of rebirth. I think like. I know there were question marks over Diego Simeone, not in terms of, whether Atleti should get rid of him, because that was never going to happen, but whether like it was worth him actually walking away and finding a new challenge. Because I don't know, it just seemed at one stage like transitioning that team was just a step too far. But Simeone did a great job of like shoring up the defence last year when so many of the key players left. And then managed to kind of revolutionise that attack, didn't he? And especially after the restart in the summer, they just looked reborn. And I guess it was slightly, the signs were kind of there from that Liverpool tie. Like, I think probably, to be honest, that second leg at Anfield, obviously the Marcos Llorente game, the game where he suddenly, evolved into an attacking midfielder in about 45 minutes. I think that may be my favourite match of football of the year, full stop. And Joao Felix, I'm trying to think if Joao Felix was playing in that game. It's so long ago I can't even remember, but it wasn't he didn't necessarily have much of an influence on it if he was on the pitch.
The celebration at the end when Morata scored and you see them all sliding in to celebrate with the fans and Trippier giving it a double salute in front of it was a pretty cool moment, wasn't it?
I think Marcos Llorente is now called his dog Anfield.
He has, yeah, that's true. So that's great, and there was a great meme afterwards as well, where like, it's hard to explain it actually, but it's basically involves Jamie Carragher, someone impersonating Jamie Carragher, criticising the Liverpool defence and like going through step-by-step guide as to how Morata got let in at the end, and suddenly like Woody from Toy Story just appears, and it's just like Jamie Carragher going, and then there you see it, it's Woody. It's just like very, very odd. Anyway, you feel free to cut that out because that was a very weird tangent. Back to what I was talking about. Joao Felix, he's just been incredible this season, hasn't he? I think he's finally looking like that player who, he was threatening to be before he moved to Atleti. I think he's just like, he's grown in stature, hasn't he? Physically, he looks a lot stronger, and he's just finding better spaces in the box as well. I think he always had an eye for something spectacular, but now he's becoming just a much better finisher. His shots have come down, but his proportion of shots that he's taking in the box has gone up a massive amount. 13 goals and 4 assists in 32 games this year. And he's also become a much better creator as well. Obviously, playing a lot better alongside Luis Suarez as well, who I think is probably the best possible kind of role model in terms of his football that he could have, to be honest. In some ways, I don't know, he can learn a lot off him, and kind of add that tenacity to his game, which I think was probably missing a little bit before. And I think that's the main thing. He just looks like he's kind of got that character now that could lead that line for a number of years, and I just think that's really exciting for Atletico Madrid fans, to have him kind of really finding himself at the same time as the midfield is functioning a lot better. Angel Correa's been fantastic, hasn't he, for the last 18 months? Players like Koke have really come back into form. So everything's kind of coming together for Atleti. After a few years, I think kind of since 2016 really, they looked a little bit like they were slowly declining, and especially on the attacking end, just were looking less and less inspired. I think, Joao Felix, but in general, the kind of this second Simeone team, as it were, at Atleti, it's just been a joy to watch.
They really have. I think it's one of the biggest improvements this year. I remember at the end of last season, I was one of the people sort of calling for Simeone to sort of move on. It felt like he'd probably done his time. I think he's the longest serving manager in Europe's top 5 leagues, and I just felt like maybe they needed a new direction, new leadership at the front of that project. But fair play to him. That defence is now bedded in that he bought in 2019. Joao Felix has come to the fore, and they look excellent. In terms of what I enjoyed the most in 2020, I'm actually going to go with Joao Kimmich. I thought this year he really cemented himself as the best midfielder in the world, ahead of Kevin De Bruyne for me, particularly given De Bruyne's form at the start of this season. I think I heard the other day when Man City were playing West Brom that Kevin De Bruyne hasn't scored a goal from open play since August in a Champions League tie against Lyon. Which just goes to show that he's still phenomenal, Kevin De Bruyne, but I think Kimmich has been more consistent across the entire year. He made 51 appearances for Bayern in all competitions last season, 6 goals and 11 assists in 44 League and Champions League games, and some of them were absolutely crucial as well. Goal versus Dortmund in the league, that amazing chip. Goal and an assist versus Barca in the quarter-finals. 2 assists versus Lyon in the semi-finals. And then, of course, got that all-important assist for Kingsley Coman in the final against PSG. This season, he's backed that up with 2 goals and 7 assists in his first 9 in League and Champions League games before that injury, that knee injury, which is going to see him miss quite a few games. I think he's already missed 10 and he's going to be back in January, which is a massive miss. But his stats are just incredible. Like, he can literally do everything in midfield. Considering he started out as a right back, his evolution into the most dominant passing midfielder in Europe, I would say, it is really something quite to behold, really. 90% pass accuracy, 77 passes per game. I think only Mats Hummels completes more long balls than him this season prior to him getting injured. He also completed the second most key passes in the treble-winning side last year, second for passes into the final third, second for passes into the penalty area, and this all sounds like he was second in everything, and there was players that were better than him. All these stats were led by different players. It was all like Alaba, Thiago, Müller, but it was Kimmich who was consistently at the top. And he was also second for tackles and interceptions, so he was pulling his weight defensively too. And if it wasn't for Lewandowski's incredible year, in which he scored 55 goals in 47 games, I actually think Kimmich deserved the Ballon d'Or this year, just because of his impact in that side, along with probably Mbappe, Neymar. Probably Mbappe and Neymar on the basis of 2020. So Kimmich deserves a massive shout out. Now, we've done the happy bit of the show. Now we're going to go into the biggest disappointments. And I'm going to kick off this section because for me, there's only one winner in this department, and it's Barcelona. Now, people need to remember that at the turn of the year, they were first in La Liga. They'd just gone through to the last 16 of the Champions League as group winners, over Dortmund and Inter Milan, and they were about to take part in the Spanish Super Cup. By that stage, they'd won 12 of their opening 18 games and sat 2 points clear of Real Madrid. Now, everyone knows what happens next. They lost 3-2 to Atleti in the Super Cup final. They then decided to sack Ernesto Valverde, didn't have a manager lined up or didn't have a plan lined up, eventually appointed Quique Setien. By the end of that season, they'd been beaten 8-2 by Bayern Munich and finished 5 points behind Real Madrid in the title race. Quique Setien was then fired. Director of Football Eric Abidal was, left to do the dirty work on that front. He was then fired as well. It's also been a year in which Bartomeu was accused of hiring a sort of PR company to besmirk the social media reputation of the likes of Pep, Piqué, Messi, Puyol, etc. He was then removed from office after facing a vote of no confidence. They lied to their greatest ever player about whether he could get a move away, and then he didn't. And this season, at the time of writing, they find themselves 9 points off leaders Real Sociedad, Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid, although they have risen to 5th, I think. And they've also got a last 16 tie against PSG in February, which, unless there's some miracle turnaround, I really can't see them getting through. So Barcelona, for me, clear biggest disappointments of this year. But Henry, you wanted to bring a slightly more niche shout to the table in Hertha Berlin.
That's right. They haven't quite had the all-out collapse of Barcelona, who I completely agree with you, biggest disappointment of 2020. But Hertha Berlin, for me, it was a choice between them and AS Monaco, because these are both sides that have invested a lot of money and promised quite a lot, but not really delivered at all. And Hertha Berlin, they made quite the statement last January, if you roll back to the start of 2020. They spent 59 million euros. So it's a big kind of announcement that they were going to invest in the squad. They were really going to try push on, because bear in mind, they play in a beautiful stadium in Berlin. prior to Union Berlin's kind of rise up, they were the main side in one of the biggest cities in Germany, so it all made sense. But they spent 59 million euros on Santiago Aspas, Lucas Toussaint from Lyon, and Christoph Piontek, the gunman, who is once again drawing blanks at Berlin. And they were under Jürgen Klinsmann, the great Jürgen Klinsmann, their second manager of 2019-20. Well, what a disaster that was. He won one of his first 4 games in charge, and then left by February, resigning on Facebook nonetheless. And I think, if I remember correctly, Hertha Berlin's director came out and basically said that Klinsmann hadn't been anything like they imagined he was going to be and was a bit of a disaster, really. And then Alexander Nuri took over on an interim basis, and that was followed by Wolfsburg boss Bruno Labbadia in April. And they just really, if you consider the investment that they kind of went under, they only won one of their last 5 games and finished 10th. 8 points off the Europa League places. That's really not good. Roll on to the summer of 2020, and Matheus Cunha, they made his loan move permanent. Now that is the one big positive, I'd say. He's a brilliant forward.
He's been awesome.
Yeah, he's a great player, and I think it's only a matter of time before someone else bigger comes in and takes him from Hertha Berlin if they continue to flop, because they spent another 27 million euros on 3 players, including FC Cologne's Cordoba, and also taken Matteo Guendouzi on loan, who apparently has been playing quite well. But they've only won 3 of their 12 league games. They sit in 12 so far. Although they are unbeaten their last 4, it's just not really good enough, is it? 8 points off 5th place Wolfsburg and only 6 points clear of relegation. So, I mean, most Hertha Berlin fans were probably looking at this season, think this is going to be 2020 as a whole, and thinking this was going to be a really exciting year. The time they finally pushed up and joined the big boys in the Bundesliga. But like for most people, 2020 has turned out to be a bit of a disappointment for them. And for me, yeah, it is a shame.
Yeah, I'm sort of surprised how badly they're doing, given the quality of players they bought. I thought Ascasiba looked like a great prospect at Stuttgart a couple of years ago. Lucas Toussaint, alongside Ndombele and Aouar, was central to Lyon's success over the last few years. And Piontek, on his day, is pretty lethal. He just seems to blow really hot and cold, and at the moment, sort of permanently cold. Matheus Cunha, though, you're totally right. What a signing he's been. McCubs, let's move on to another disastrous signing, really, in Christian Eriksen.
Yeah, again, I found it a bit tough to think about this, actually. But yeah, I think Christian Eriksen probably has to go down as one of the worst signings of the season, doesn't he? Of the year, I mean. And just Inter Milan's 2020 in general, I think most people will look at it with a bit of disappointment, to be honest. I was going to say as well, Frankie de Jong as well. Obviously, you covered Barcelona, but I think he's probably been one of the more disappointing players this year, at least in terms of where I expected him to be at this moment in time compared to where he is. But yeah, Eriksen, I don't know, it's just a really sad situation, I think, with Eriksen, because as it stands, he wants out of Inter, basically, doesn't he? He's not playing really at all. Antonio Conte has no issue with kind of keeping him on the bench, and his system doesn't really suit him either. And it's just a bit sad considering that, you know, a year ago, he was basically kind of all but out of Spurs. He'd kind of almost kind of phoned it in for the last 2 months, which is perhaps a little bit unfair, but, you know, he'd made it very clear that he wanted to leave, and that he wasn't going to sign a new contract, and I don't know, I think he kind of cut a little bit of an isolated figure in North London in those final months, especially after Pochettino left. And I don't know, it's just really sad because he was, you know, one of the top creators in world football, wasn't he? I think he averaged over 19 goal contributions across 4 seasons between 15-16 and 18-19. I mean, like, he was pretty much Spurs' key player in their kind of success under Pochettino. You know, I don't think Harry Kane would have got, you know, anywhere near as many goals as he has done in the last few years if it wasn't for Eriksen. Same for Son. You know, he was really the heartbeat of that attack. So yeah, it just makes what's happened this year to him just, I don't know, just all the more demoralising, hasn't it? You know, he's still at a decent age. He, you know, physically, he doesn't look like he's going to be letting up anytime soon. It just feels like he needs to find a happy home like ASAP, really. He's only been given 12 league starts in this whole year, despite having no injuries. 32 league and Champions League appearances this year. 1 goal and 2 assists. Sorry, that includes Europa League, not just Champions League. And just 1 shot in 8 league appearances this term. creating 7 chances and completing 4 dribbles. So it just goes to show just how unsuited he is to this Inter team, which is very much built on kind of combative, kind of defensive midfielders who will just press or sit back and spray the ball from deep. Doesn't seem to be a role for a number 10 in there, which makes it all the more strange that Antonio Conte even wanted to go for him in the first place. It didn't seem like the most, it didn't make the most sense when it happened, but you kind of thought, oh well, he'll probably make it work, but just hasn't made it work at all. And this has gone along with what's been a disappointing year for them in general, hasn't it? I mean, at the start of the 1920 campaign, I think we all, to varying degrees, backed them to really give Juve a run for their money in Serie A. They did, to be fair, like they only finished 1 point off winning it, but they only won just over half of their final 15 league games, and it was there for the taking. Juve were, rubbish, weren't they, in the final 2 months of the season? There's no getting around that, and yet they couldn't surmount their lead. They were also kind of nearly men in the cup competitions. They lost in the Coppa Italia semi-final. They lost to Sevilla in a Europa League final, which on paper they probably should have won. And then in the Champions League, they've been disastrous this year, haven't they? Knocked out in the groups, not even got into the Europa League. It's just been poor. It's just been poor. And I think I can't remember when was the last time Inter got out of the groups in the Champions League. I think it's carried on quite a damning run. Not sure even since the Mourinho days. I might be wrong, but I mean, they're in decent form at the moment. I think they've got 5 consecutive wins in the league, just 1 point off Milan. So you would hope they'd be able to turn it around. You always back Conte to get it right at some point, but I know Dougie, you're backing him to get sacked pretty soon. Eriksen definitely needs to get out of there. Just a sad situation really, to see one of Europe's best players just fall off so much and just look so unhappy.
Yeah, it is a real shame. I always get bullied in my mates' WhatsApp group because I always bring up how good Eriksen was at Spurs, and everyone always takes the piss out of me. They think I'm sort of like in love with him, which I was for a time at Spurs. I thought he was excellent at Spurs, and it is, like you say, really sad. But hopefully it picks up for him and Conte in 2021. Let's go. We're continuing a bit of a roller coaster. We've done biggest disappointments. Now we're going to our unsung heroes of 2020. And Henry, I love your shout for this one.
Wow. All my thoughts were La Liga based. I wanted to talk about Eibar for being this amazingly run small club. I think they turned a €14 million profit again this year in the toughest of circumstances. I wanted to talk about Mikel Moreno for his unsung amazing qualities for Real Sociedad at the base of the centre of midfield. Defensive minded guy. But I would like people in the comments to let me know if they think there's a bigger cult hero for an individual club than Iago Aspas for Celta Vigo. Sure. He is once again saved their skin, and he is Galician born and bred. He's from Vigo. He was part of their youth academy, rise up through there. 2013, left to join Liverpool, didn't work. Went to join Sevilla after that a year later, and then just a year after that rejoined Celta Vigo in June 2015 for €5 million, and he has been unbelievable ever since. 109 goals in 206 games, including 96 in 178 La Liga games for the club. He's now 7th on the list of active goal scorers in La Liga with 110 behind Messi, Benzema, Griezmann, Soldado and Negredo. I've read that he, in 2020, he became the 4th fastest player to 100 goals in La Liga since the Spanish Civil War, which is back in the 1930s. Wow. He broke so many records for Celta Vigo in 2020, but time and time again, he's dug them out of difficult situations. They finished 17th for the last 2 seasons in a row now. And in 1920, he got 14 goals and 3 assists in 37 league games. I think he was in tears at the end when he confirmed their survival. And it hasn't been easy again for Celta Vigo in the start of 2020 this year. 7 goals, though, and 14 assists in 13 league games. He's 33 years old now. But Iago Aspas, he just gives absolutely everything for Celta Vigo. Their league position right now is looking quite good because they've been on a run recently, but it wasn't always like that. They've been flirting with relegation once again this season. But, for a small club like Celta Vigo, to have a player like Iago Aspas who just loves the club inside and out and is actually an incredible player. You cannot, all those statistics I've just said, you cannot undermine just how successful he's been as a striker. He's brilliant. It's a shame it didn't work out at Liverpool. He actually played quite well at Sevilla, but clearly he just really wanted to go back to Galicia. And I just love the fact that he's managed to drag them to safety once more. He's so passionate about the club. And for me, he's a player that deserves the utmost respect from all professionals. He's an awesome guy, and that's why he's my unsung hero.
I think it's a great shout. I love Iago Aspas, a nice cold finisher as well. And as you said, 7 goals and 4 assists already this season. He just keeps on getting better and better, or if not better and better, at least keeping his level very high. McCubs, I also like your shout for unsung heroes. You've gone for an entire division.
Yeah, because they saved football, didn't they? The Bundesliga. I feel like, the restart of football back in May, June seems like a distant memory now with everything that's gone on this year. But it's easy to forget. I think that there was a period kind of following that first lockdown that it really felt like football wasn't going to come back for a very long time, and somehow within 9 weeks they managed to make it work in Germany, which, to be fair, out of all the big European nations, at least initially, definitely had a better hold on the pandemic, didn't they, than anyone else. And kind of in the build up to it, I think it was there was a lot more confidence growing that they would be able to make it work, at least to a certain extent. But the success of the Bundesliga and bring football back, and it generally running pretty smoothly, gave, I think, above all else, just gave a lot of confidence to say the Premier League, to La Liga, that they could make it work. And obviously was pretty bad news for Dutch and French fans who'd already seen their leagues cancelled. But I think it's easy to downplay just how important that was. The Premier League only came back, about less than a month later in mid-June. And I really think if the Bundesliga hadn't come back when it had done, I think that would have put the Premier League coming back by at least a few weeks, if not a month or more. Just because they basically, they laid down the blueprint, things like having red, amber and green zones within stadiums with their own protocols, in terms of the kind of protocols in the build-up to games, in terms of the way that testing was done. The Bundesliga really led the way with that. And I think they have to take massive credit for basically football getting back underway across Europe, especially in the Premier League. I think, I forget his name now. Is it Richard Masters, the chief executive of the Premier League, basically said as much that the Bundesliga was a huge help to the Premier League coming back. And I feel like there was no better kind of federation to kind of lead the way with that. Massive credit to the Bundesliga, because I think that they basically saved the 2019-20 season for a lot of leagues.
They really did. And, without them going back, maybe we wouldn't have had the Champions League returning and all those great games, the Europa League returning, and maybe football just wouldn't look quite the same right now. So well done to the Bundesliga and their organisation behind it. Finally, for me on an unsung hero, I'm going with Angel Di Maria. I actually think he's been sort of an unsung hero, slightly underappreciated his entire career, and not least in 2020. I mean, his league and Champions League goal contributions per season have gone, get this, 33, 18, 19 and 28. Last year, 31 and 22 in the league alone. Last year, 9 goal contributions in 9 Champions League games as well. 2.4 shots, 3.5 key passes, 3 dribbles, and he's a really unliked footballer. I think it's because of his time at Man United, at least in England, that he's not really appreciated, and his sort of joy, and whenever he's played and beaten Man United since, or actually when they've lost as well, he's become a bit of a meme. And it's a really unfair reflection on who is one of the most talented players of the last sort of decade. His sort of evolution from tricky winger at Benfica to just an all-round fantastic attacking midfielder who can also play wide as well. He's just been phenomenal. And this year, 3 goals and 6 assists in 15 League and Champions League games as well. PSG obviously going through a bit of a tricky patch in terms of their injuries and probably their midfield composition as well. But Angel Di Maria deserves an awful lot of credit. To wrap up this first section, before we go into our quickfire question, we're going to talk about our team of the year. And McCubs, we've kind of got to start with Bayern Munich. Your suggestion?
Yeah, there's no looking past them, is there? Just the best team in the world by some distance this year, I think. At least in the context of Liverpool slightly dropping off at the start of this season. They've just been unreal, haven't they? They started the year 3rd place in the Bundesliga. Obviously, Hansi Flick had only been at the club. Well, not been at the club. Hansi Flick had only been in full charge of the team for about a month at that point. Just absolutely transformed them, didn't he? I think, to be fair, some of the work had been done a little bit by Niko Kovac. I think it was Kovac who had initially moved David Alaba to centre back to kind of make up for the loss of Niklas Süle, and that turned out to be a masterstroke, didn't it? But then Alphonso Davies, his kind of announcement on the world stage was just, one of the most dramatic we've seen, I think, in some years from a young player. Thomas Müller's rebirth into having, the season of his life was just amazing to see after so many years of him being disrespected. They won 16 of their final 17 league games to just absolutely trounce the rest of the Bundesliga. Obviously beat a number of top teams on their way to lifting the Champions League. Obviously that 8-2 against Barcelona, I think in some ways, they don't get enough credit for. We talk about that game in terms of the collapse of Barcelona, but Bayern Munich were absolutely ruthless in that match. We saw the best season ever from Robert Lewandowski as well. We saw Serge Gnabry really announce himself as one of the world's top attackers. Kingsley Coman as well. You saw his career get back on track, which was really lovely to see. Obviously, we talked about Joshua Kimmich before. Thiago, just like everyone in that team, just hit a new level, didn't they? And it was just amazing to see.
Yeah, they were phenomenal. I mean, I've got down here as well, they scored 3 or more goals in 29 games in 2020, which is just ridiculous. I mean, Bayern were imperious, Henry, but there is also another shout in Italy.
Yeah, I think if you look at it as a calendar year, AC Milan have had the best 2020 in many ways. Obviously, Bayern Munich, you can't look past them. But AC Milan, the Rossoneri, dare I say it, are back. That's what it kind of looks like at the moment. They were 11th in the table on the 1st of January 2020 after 6 wins in 17 games. And they've just lost 2 of their 33 league games since. Which is just unbelievable, and I think they're unbeaten this season, so most of that came sort of the back end of the previous campaign. They've now got 72 points this calendar year. Inter have 64 and Juve and Atalanta have 62, which just shows you just how impressive they've been. They sit 1 point clear at the top of the league. Only Inter have scored more than their 27 goals this year, and only Juve and Hellas Verona, who are having a very defensively great 2020 so far, have conceded fewer than their 13. So they completely know what they're doing. Massive credit to Pioli for what he's done. Ibrahimovic has been an absolute revelation since joining. He's been amazing, and it's just beginning to click. They've got one of the most young, exciting teams in Europe. But players like Simon Kjaer at the back, they've suddenly found the form of their life. Donnarumma's looking exceptional. He now looks like he wants to stay. Çalhanoğlu's rise to the occasion, and then Rebic, Rafael Leao. It's one of these teams where you're suddenly looking at it and think, hold on a second, AC Milan, they've got a great squad. And like I said, I think Ibrahimovic, 39 years old, what an absolute boss man. And I just think for 2020 as a year, you can't overlook how great it's been. And I really hope that they do stay where they are now. I hope they can build on this, because I think Serie A needs a strong AC Milan.
Absolutely. I think it's really revitalised the league this year. It's just led to so much excitement. And yeah, you mentioned all the key men there. Teo Hernandez as well deserves a mention as well. I don't think there's probably been a better signing by any club in the last sort of 3 years in terms of impact on a side. He's been phenomenal. Lost half the amount of games of Liverpool in 2020, which just goes to show how exceptional they've been. The final team we want to mention is Real Sociedad. They're my suggestion. They actually had a really disappointing end to the 2019-20 campaign. Just 2 wins from their final 11 games, which meant they finished 6th. They had been 4th before lockdown. They lost Odegaard in the summer. Only David Silva arrived on a free. But they've been pretty good. I mean, they've had a little drop off recently. I mean, at the time of recording, they've just lost to Barcelona as well. They've won 7 of their opening 14 games, lost just twice, level on points with Atleti as it stands and Real Madrid. But as I said, they haven't won any of their 4 previous league games with 3 draws and 1 defeat. And it feels like next year, if they manage to secure a top 4 place, that'll be a fantastic season from Imanol Alguacil's men. So shout out to Real Sociedad. They too have, likened to AC Milan, really shaken up this year. So I think I'm with McCubbin. Team of the year's got to be Bayern in terms of trophies won, but Henry's shout of AC Milan is a very good one as well. But guys, get your unsung heroes and disappointments of the year and thing you enjoyed the most in the comments down below. And let's move on to our quickfire question. Our quickfire question comes in from Omar Sheikh Salim, and it's which title challengers in Europe can keep up their momentum after Christmas? McCubs, what do you reckon on this?
I'd probably have to go back to AC Milan, to be honest. I think out of all the challenges across Europe, I mean, though Leipzig as well, I guess, in Germany, I think they've shown that they've got the tactical nous and the players to be able to keep up a title challenge. I think they'll probably sustain one better this season than last. But yeah, AC Milan, I think. I kind of had my doubts back in like October, November, whether they had a squad deep enough to do it. But like, considering how good they've been with and without Zlatan Ibrahimovic on the pitch, I think it's credit to Stefano Pioli in terms of the kind of game plans that he can enact and the players that he can utilise. So yeah, I think AC Milan actually have a really good shout.
Absolutely. Henry, would you bring anyone else to the table on that front?
Completely agree. I was going to say AC Milan, but I'd love to see Lille push PSG close in Liga. I think they've got such an exciting forward line. Once again, they've got experience running through that midfield. Benjamin Andre in the centre. Even Jose Font looks like he's never getting any older. And PSG don't seem to have any defenders anymore. Their back line seems to be non-existent with injuries. So yeah, fingers crossed Lille can do some damage. Or even Marseille, they're pushing them close too.
Yeah, I think Atleti and Madrid are a shout as well. If you consider them a bit of an outsider, I think they'll go all the way this year. And Leipzig as well. I really like the signing of Szoboszlai, despite the fact I'm not quite sure where he's going to play in the next 6 months with Forsberg and Dani Olmo. Dani Olmo's been awesome so far. So yeah, I mean, hopefully there's title challenges deep into next year, because in the chaos of the European top 5 leagues so far, it's just been really enjoyable seeing big teams fail, new teams come up, new players emerge. I think it's been awesome. But guys, that's all we've got time for on Continental Club for this week. Have a great Christmas day tomorrow. McCubs' camera's about to run out of video, so we're not going to push to anything in particular. But go and check out our AC Milan scout report on how they transformed into title contenders, which dropped last week. Thank you so much for watching. Send us your thoughts about what you made of the show in the comment section down below, and we'll see you next time. Bye!